Yeah. It's Adnan, baby. You knew that, though.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's extra special episode of Pursuit of Motion. We're here with Dr. Melanie McCaig. We're going to get into who she is and all of the amazing research and work she does. But before then, I just want to start off with a little caveat, something interesting. I cannot cite the source, but that's fine. Trust me, bro. 90% of podcasts do not make it past the 10th episode. 90% of podcasts fail before episode 10. It is my great pleasure to welcome you guys to the 10th episode of Pursuit of Motion. We made it happen. Exactly. And with that celebration, with that level of hype, let's dive in. Dr. McCaig.
Hello. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for having me today.
I'm grateful to be here with you. It's very, fortunate that we're in such an amazing environment.
I know, look at this room.
It's great.
Gorgeous.
Shout out Saint Effects, as always.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So your focus is on computer science, it's on technology, and it's on something particular called the Internet of Things. I'd love to know what sparked that passion. What got you into this in the first place?
No, and I always say things are a great question, but I mean, you do have great questions, so it's hard not to say that. But yeah, I think I was just really interested in how our world is changing around technology. And I think there are a lot of people who like to sit down and code and do the hardcore making of the technology and coding of the technology. But I was more interested in the people side of the technology. How do people use technology? How do they adopt it? What are the barriers for doing that? And that's when I learned about the Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is very much like anything connected to the internet. So we have our smartwatches, our Google watches, or Apple watches. You have maybe you're one of those bougie families that has the smart fridge, smart washer, dryer. They're smart. Everything is becoming smart. Which we could talk about more later. And I was just thinking about, okay, as we're becoming an increasingly digital world, what are the social implications? So the research I do is called social technical research, which is looking at how technology is changing people and how people is changing technology. And so just the one I started off with was the Internet of Things in agriculture, just to see how is that impacting farming. But I'd love to move into all different topics.
So I definitely want to dig further into agriculture, but before we get there, when did you know that you loved computer science? When did that spark?
Yeah, I think I have always been actually, when I was a kid, I was very much afraid of robots. They freaked me out. Even in techno songs, you'll have the robot voice being kill everyone. And I just said it would just freak me out. And I think it's all those sci-fi movies, AI, it always kind of scared me. But sometimes the scariest things are the most interesting. So originally I thought I was going to just do I was going to do my PhD in management, and that would have been cool. I had a whole plan about doing it in small businesses and talent management, which I did a paper on in my master's. But then, yeah, it was really my supervisor's idea that said, you should look into this computer science PhD. And at first I was like, no way. This is sounds like a lot of work. Technology is really cool, but I did my undergrad and my master's in business. So I never really thought of it until, I met with Rosita Dara. Shout out to her. She used to work at RIM, otherwise known as BlackBerry, in Waterloo, and she went back and did her PhD in computer science at Waterloo and is now a professor in computer science at Guelph. And talking to her whole domain is privacy and security in agriculture. And so I got interested because she was interested, and now we're here. So it's kind of I never really thought of it until the opportunity presented itself, and then sometimes you have to do the scary things. So I did the scary thing.
And so you just mentioned Waterloo and Ontario. So where you got your undergrad?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad and my master's at the University of Guelph in business. So I did. Woo woo.
Lang.
There you go. We know about you guys. Yeah, when I told my classes that I was coming here, because I was teaching there during my PhD, everyone was like, "Oh, we know about SignFX, like their JDCC team, like we know all of them, like," and they always said like, "Oh, you'll love it there. Like the X students are so nice, they're so great," and I'm like, "I hope so," and it's true. They are very great.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, so little promo. But yeah, no. So I did my undergrad and my master's there at Guelph, and then I switched from the management department to the computer science department, but still at the University of Guelph. So I really stayed in the same place, and that's why I was able to do it so fast. To just kind of jump from my master's to my undergrad to my master's to my PhD. Did it all in one shot, all over all the summers, and now we're here.
And so how did you find that transition? Like, were you familiar with code or with tech before, or did you kind of
I kind of just dived in that water. Like I again like was always like interested in like games and things like that. But yeah, I had to take like coding classes in my PhD and qualitative research, like a lot of different things that it was scary because it was my first time doing it. But yeah, I was really introduced in my PhD. That's where it started. But so you can, it's like just try cool things. Even if it's scary, just go for it. It's like learning is lifelong.
Yeah, and as long as you're open to learning new things,
exactly.
Always avenues.
There's always something cool. Like just do the cool thing,
100%.
Even if it's hard, you do it.
And that's something that people who listen to this podcast relate to personally. So that's
for sure. I love that
takeaway.
Yeah.
So, Internet of Things. We're just talking about technology that's connected to the internet that may not necessarily you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be.
Yeah.
Like you would expect a computer to be able to connect, but you wouldn't expect your Roomba, like your vacuum.
Exactly. Everything these days. Your lights,
So can we break that down a little bit more? Like, where did your interest in Internet of Things start?
Yeah, I think it was just the fact that in agriculture, specifically like farming, it's they always say, one of the oldest professions or the first profession. And it's kind of, gone through changes over the years. Like it started with tractors and then it went to now it's becoming drones and sensors. So they're just a really important industry. I could have the exact numbers, but huge, we rely on food to exist, basically. So Canada really, really cares about agriculture because we need it to feed people. And the fact that technology is coming in and changing it, it's like a really stressful experience for everyone. So technology, specifically Internet of Things, and all different aspects of farming, like they have basically Fitbits for like cows. They have like automatic milking machines, so people don't have to like get down on the ground and like milk cows anymore. They have things that like will check like health of animals when they're ready to like, the quality of the meat. So really it was just like immersing myself in like a completely new field, and the Internet of Things was just the tool. And I honestly like never farmed, didn't come from a farming family, didn't know anything about farming. But again, it was kind of like it was my supervisor's domain, and I was like, okay, I'll take a chance and like learn more about this. And it's been really cool. So I think this specifically Internet of Things, I think it was just because like it's like everywhere, right? It's in sensors, it's in our houses, it's in our fridges, and by the next couple of years, it's going to be even more billions and billions all over the world. So I think I chose it because, like AI, it's like an emerging field. Everything will be smart.
And so, just to make sure I understand,
of course,
did agriculture and computer science come wrapped in one bundle? You jumped into two new things at once.
Exactly. Yeah, it was very much when I met my supervisor, she said, "This is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in technology and agriculture." But she hadn't ever looked at like the social impact of it, and coming from like a business background, just like yourself, that you do have all of that organizational, you do have that social aspect. So I was applying business to computer science. So it's very much like, okay, we have these technologies, but why? Like, what is the human impact of this? What is the adoption? What are they scared of? What are they excited about? And like mapping all of that.
And so how do you measure that sort of thing? Is it measured in output? Is it measured in quality? Is it measured in, the experience the farmer had in integrating the technology? What sort of measurements are you looking at?
So there's definitely a bunch of different stuff we could go here. So we kind of break it down into like as you're familiar with, qualitative and quantitative. So I have friends that do a lot of statistics, they do a lot of surveys. I have a friend very similar like topic as me. She goes out and like sends thousands of surveys all around Canada to farmers and says like what technology do you use, how likely are you to do this, and breaks it down like 98% of farmers do X, Y, and Z. However, you can only get so much from a survey. And it also depends on if you're asking the right questions. Like you as an interviewer know that if you don't ask the right questions, then like the answers you get might not be exactly what you're looking for. So what I do as a qualitative researcher is I'm kind of like, I always say like a therapist to farmers. I sit down and have chats just like this, and we talk about like a wide variety of their experiences. So when I sit down and I say, okay, like what made you in your experiences want to adopt something and what made you stay away from it, and through their experiences I break it all down, and that's how we make these like matrices, and that's how we essentially make these like maps of everyone's thoughts. So as a qualitative researcher, we do this thing called discourse analysis, which is what my research is another word for like thematic analysis, all these fancy names. Basically what we do is we have these conversations with people, we take the transcripts and we break it down and organize the pools of thought. So we group the pools of thought so that we could say not necessarily 98% of farmers think like that, because that's not what we're going for. We're not going for statistics. What we're going for is showing here's what the experiences are of these people that we talk to and what can we learn from these experiences. So even if like one person says, I had problems with AI because, and I'm trying to find a better example, but I liked I'll give you a real example. I had a farmer that said he was 80 years old, older guy, cow farmer, and he said I wouldn't be able to be a farmer anymore if I didn't have this automatic milking machine, because when the cows are ready to be milked, walks right into the machine gives cows treats. The more milk they give, the more treats it gets. The cows walk out of the machine. Happy cows equal happy farmer, which is what he said. And now he doesn't need to go out on the ground and milk anymore. So he can be a farmer well into his 80s and 90s. Well, for the rest of his life. So it's an interesting thing, because in a survey you might not get that. You might just say yes, I use technology, or no, I use technology. Whereas in a qualitative interview, you're able to like get into like the real experiences and kind of showcase other people's stories.
It's about really understanding their perspective and understanding that pain point that's solved by this inclusion of technology.
Exactly. And then using that to provide recommendations for people making the technology and like the policies for the government, so they understand what's better happening, so they can better support people. Because the big issue with my thesis that I found is not a lot of people are talking to the farmers. They very much are going and making all this technology, or they're implementing all these rules, but they're making technology that people don't want to use because it's difficult. So why wouldn't they make technology with the people's thoughts already in mind?
I have a little anecdotal story, but something similar to that. Do. My car is a standard; it's a manual.
Yeah.
But the thing about new manuals versus the older is they're all connected electronically, like through the computer.
Yeah.
And so I had an experience up in northern Alberta, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Luckily, I was blessed to still have warranty on my vehicle at the time.
Yeah.
It was minus 40 out, and I pressed down the clutch, and the thing wouldn't engage because the computer something had misfired. And that's a key difference between an older model where you would push on the clutch and it would mechanically move that and so to what degree do you notice or hear about things like that in the implementation of technology in the field?
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to say. And that's exactly like in farming. Like now people are having like autonomous tractors, just like we have like cars are coming out that, self-driving cars, you have self-driving tractors. And that's like really scary for farmers who take a lot of pride in their work. So I think it's not just like a farm issue, it's like a world issue. And so, yeah, I do think that the more and more technology we put in every aspect of our lives, like our cars or our tractors, the more it'll be a problem. And there'll be so many different problems that just span from that. So I do think, like, a lot of times there are like system issues. The right to repair is a huge thing in farming because of all these like tech warranties. People aren't able, like, farmers typically are, well, farmers are the like problem solving people. The big joke is that farmers never want to go to the doctor. So if you ever see a farmer at the doctor's office, you're like, uh-oh, like something is wrong because duct tape and gauze didn't fix it for this guy. So, or this person. So it's hard though, because usually these people would, fix the tractor themselves. But now because of the right to repair, they're not even able to go in and fix their own tractors because John Deere or some big manufacturer has the right to program that. And they hate calling people. I had a potato farmer, good guy. He talked to me and he said it was the most frustrating thing when their potato machine stopped working. The peeler of it all and like packaging of it, because not only did they have to call the manufacturer made them call someone else because the manufacturer was in French and they didn't speak French. So it's just a whole mess. So I do think it'll be more on the rise as things become more and more smart.
Would you be willing to give some more examples of pieces of tech that you would commonly find on the farm?
Yeah. So we talked about like the automatic milkers for cows. They always say that cows are like the easiest. I don't know if that's exactly true. They have essentially like monitoring like things to see when like cows are giving birth. They can kind of track that because being a farmer is hard. Like if you're a pet owner or maybe you have your own farm, you know that like things can go wrong at any time. Like animals can get sick and that can like influence like the food line. So a thing about the automatic milking system, to go back to that for a second, is the automatic milking system is so smart. It can actually detect if the cow is sick. And what it'll do is it'll take that milk that's being taken out of the cow and it'll put it in a different bucket than all of the rest of the good milk. So a lot of these things, like, it's very scary for people to make all these changes, but like it's better for like food production, like it's better for the cow. We're able to know earlier if the animal is sick. Other things that come to the top of my mind are RFID tags, like just like how you have your Apple AirTags. Essentially what we're doing is, or what the agricultural industry is doing is every cow gets like a little like earring. So if there is like a disease, like an outbreak of like mad cow disease or like whatever kind of terrible thing that would happen, they're able to trace it back and say, okay, it's this is the farm that's been decontaminated. This is like where it all comes through. People really complain about that though, because they should be doing more with this RFID tag because the whole thing is like farm to fork, where people are able to like kind of understand where the food goes through the supply chain. However, like it's only right now or from at this point, again, different industries are different things. So there's not all industries, but right now farmers kind of see it as a negative because one, they have to pay like a couple dollars per cow, but also they know that if their cow gets sick, it all traces back to them, and that wrecks their reputation as a farm.
Yeah, it would be alienating.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't want to be known as the farm that made everyone sick. So hopefully it can become more of a like mutually beneficial thing. Last thing I'll say is it's not yet being utilized for like cuts of meat and like sheep, which is kind of an interesting industry. I didn't learn all about like all of this. I've never heard the word carcass so many times in my PhD. I was like, really, I was really surprised about that. But right now they would really just like weigh, like the pricing would be like the same for every different type of sheep, but with, hopefully more technology, they could get better prices depending on like different types of quality and just like more information to better and more feedback to better their farm. So I would just say there's a lot of different things and more all the time.
So I want to shift a little bit into accessibility because the thing about technology is it's increasingly more expensive, or at the very least, the consumer market pays a higher price for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so do you find that there's a disconnect between, I mean, of course there's a disconnect between what big farm versus a family-owned ranch or dairy farm would be able to afford, but do you find there's a significant disconnect between the quality and technology available?
That's a good question. I would say that as we know about Moore's law and all of this thing, that over time technology gets faster and faster and more smaller and smaller and more chips and more, at a crazy speed. I think the good thing about technology is that over time it does become cheaper. Like think about like when you were a kid, the size of your TV. It was probably like big and bulky and that had that huge back and like weighed probably 500 pounds. And now you can get a TV like, from $200 at Costco or something. So I do think that there is a discrepancy between like obviously bigger farms a lot of times have more money, they have more resources, they can have more just more everything really. more tech, more funds, more grants, more everything.
Less heart.
Yeah, exactly. Less heart. There you go. So that's a whole thing. But I do think like slowly over time these things are becoming more and more accessible. But it just depends on if people still want to use it even if it's cheap. Sometimes it's like think about maybe your grandfather, right? Your grandfather could probably get a phone for free, but would he want to use it or is he stuck in his old ways? And the farming population on average is very old, right? So you have to convince old dogs to learn new tricks. So sometimes people go for it and other people are just happy in the way they are. But it is good over time. What we actually see with technology, to talk about the pill cam from our 281 class, their technology and cameras are getting so accessible. We'll probably get to a point where we're throwing out sensors all the time. There's this thing called the pill cam, which is so sometimes when people have like intestinal issues, they can essentially instead of having like a big scope, like a big microscope thing kind of like get shoved inside of them. Sorry. Yeah. yeah. Oops. Instead of having that inside of them, they can actually take a pill with a camera in it and they can see the inside of your stomach. And so we have so much, sometimes technology is getting so cheap, it can just be like thrown away. So we might actually enter a time that we're throwing away hundreds of sensors a day. Yeah.
And so disposable sensors, to kind of build a bridge from that, based off your experience and research, would you be willing to speculate on some future farm technology that you could see coming into the market?
That's a good question. I honestly trying to think of the first thing that comes to mind, but I think there's just going to be like a lot more monitoring of animals. Like automatic feeding is already a thing. Automatic like self-driving tractors are already a thing. It'll be interesting though to see see what more data can do to a farm. So maybe with more data, they'll be able to like keep animals healthier, whether that's with like sensors or little chips. Maybe they'll be like GPS. So if all your animals run away, you'll be able to catch them. Yeah, like I'm trying to think. AI is crazy. AI, we could talk about that. In healthcare, it's especially looking into how that'll get better. Or just honestly using AI, I think will be the next thing in farming to say, okay, here's all the data that we've had over our past, like couple years as a farmer or however long they've been. To have usable data, it'll help people make predictions for what they could do in the future and how to be more efficient and how to save money. And I think that's really where the discrepancy is like if people have accessible data. Because if you have good data, then you can make forecasts and decisions. But if you don't know, then you don't know. You can't measure what you can't measure, right? So it will be interesting to see how AI will provide details of our data. For example, in healthcare, we're looking at right now people willingly sharing their like physical health data and like their blood pressure and all of their details of everything. It's and actually being able to pinpoint you know I don't want to get too dark, but being able to pinpoint if like you're susceptible to certain like diseases or cancers, or, you know, I had a friend in my grad school, he was working on using AI to like take pictures of freckles. So you take pictures of a freckle and the AI would be like, this is a freckle that you should get checked by a doctor, or you shouldn't have to worry about it. But really, I think health in general, I know I've steered away from farming and into health, but it would be really interesting to see if we as a human society live longer because of the benefits of AI, or if AI will be the end of us. So I think AI and farming, just being able to figure out how to keep animals healthier, that will make sure our food is better. But really just using that, yeah.
It would certainly introduce a degree of standardization for sure.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how it affects the new generation of farmers, in the sense that there's a basic philosophical principle that the more we rely on tools, the less human we become, the less capable we become. And so I wonder to what degree that may be a hindrance for the next generation of farmers, in that they will be reliant on the tech. But you know, another consideration, especially bringing it back to the example of the grandpa with the phone, to what degree do you find security is something that people are concerned about with Internet of Things? Like, for example, a self-driving tractor, it would be mighty awful if someone steered that thing at my house.
Of course.
Or if I'm going to spend all my time, well, not, of course not all my time, but if I'm going to spend time as a farmer explaining the degree of the pH balance in my soil and what I specifically want to plant based on the nitrogen levels in the ground, and then this thing feeds me the wrong information, or even worse, that information is taken by a local competitor. To what degree do you find there's security in these things?
Yeah, I think that's, very interesting. I think people have different levels of being worried about it. I had one person I talked to, and I asked them this question about, are you worried about like your data being taken? And they had said like, oh, I'm a young person, like Google owns me, like I don't worry about that. But and talking to different people, it was interesting that it was almost like they are okay if their data is like aggregated as a whole. Like if they are just a statistic in a big mass of data, then people are okay with that. But people don't want to know that their neighbors know about their financial information. People don't want to know that. They want to be comfortable in having like consensually given people their information. So I would say there's like different levels of what people feel comfortable with, but I do agree that it is a concern. We could talk about ransomware, which is a really interesting thing to me.
Yeah, please.
So ransomware is, and it's already a huge problem in the tech industry. Basically, what happens is a hacker, not to scare all your viewers, but a hacker essentially will go after either like a hospital or a farm or a company. And what they'll do, Indigo actually was hacked by ransomware, and many hospitals in the States are hacked by ransomware. Basically, a hacker will go and say, I have seized all of your information. And if you do not pay me like $5 million or whatever amount of money, then you will never get your information back and we'll delete everything. And so this is a huge problem when it's like people's like health data, right? And the more we rely on technology, like the more this is like a big issue, because imagine you're in a hospital and all of your stats and everything are on a computer and you're not able to access that and like help the patient, right? Or what if all of that is sold, and what does all that look like? So ransomware, a lot of the times what people do is they'll actually just like pay the ransomware, because even if people go against and they don't pay the ransomware, the loss that they have for not getting their data back is actually a lot of times like more expensive than just paying the ransom. So the fact that like hospitals can become like victims of ransomware, that Indigo, like I said, that different corporations, that it's like this big risk, and it's honestly like it's just like the tip of the iceberg. Like a lot of times in our technologies, like these Internet of Things, it's because a lot of these companies are very like profit driven and it's very competitive. They're just racing to put out their stuff before everyone else's. A lot of times security might just be like a bit of an oversight. Like it'll just be like some person who just made it, quickly, did it as fast as they can because they want to go home and watch TV. And then that can turn into, for example, there's a case in London, England, that someone hacked an entire neighborhood's thermostats and turned it all the way up to everyone's house up to 100 degrees. And that was, just a small thing. So I think as technology becomes increasingly embedded in our lives, I think security and privacy also have to be increasingly more focused on. And I think some farmers are aware of it, but some farmers don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and I want to move on, but so it sounds like you're saying there is a specific opportunity in the field of computer science in defensive
Yeah,
work,
for sure.
in security work.
Yeah.
And so what, as an expert in the field, where would you point people towards if that's something they were interested in studying?
There's actually, so it depends on what angle you're going for this, but there's actually a job called ethical hackers. So if you want to be an ethical hacker, we talked about this. Ethical hackers. So it would be your job essentially that someone says, here's my new technology, here's my new app, here's my new whatever, and figure out how to hack it. They actually have these things called hackathons where it's essentially like a whole group of people all come together, and instead of hacking into a bank, they all hack a program to try to find all the holes, so then developers can patch up all the holes, so people who are trying to take advantage of the company don't do that. So there is that. I would say that it's like a huge, like, cybersecurity. If that's a really interesting topic to you, there's definitely, like, Deloitte has a whole line of cybersecurity. You could become a cybersecurity consultant. You could do more school if you want to do more school. There's definitely, I would say that, like, IT. I kind of, the reason why I got into computer science is IT. You kind of think of like some person going in and like fixing your computer and like opening your browser, resetting your password. But really, like, because we live in a world that's like so embedded in technology, we need like cybersecurity experts. We need, people to be focused on not just like the technical aspects, not just the coding, but like the human aspects of it too. Policy in the government, we need more policy because all of our laws are pretty, they've been around for a long time. So we need a lot of updates. So if you're interested, come talk to me. but no, it's true. It's definitely a developing field. We need more of it.
I want to move on and ask,
of course,
what is the weirdest sensor you've came across in your time of exploring Internet of Things?
See, when I was thinking of this, there's so many ones. I think the thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this question is I've been really interested in, I guess it doesn't really count as a sensor, so you gotta forgive me on that one. But I've been really interested in like smart contact lenses because I really think that's my kind of prediction in the future, is that smart contact lenses will be, they're getting so good. They're called, go look up Mojo if you're interested. They're developing all this. I'm sure they'll be like, acquired by Google if they're not already. But I just think it's so interesting that, like, we are already like being changed by technology, right? Like, for example, if you walk out of your house, you immediately feel up your pockets for like phone, wallet, keys.
Exactly.
Like, or even like if you have a smartwatch, like if you don't have it, yeah, you got a nice watch too. If you you kind of like, you just feel, when you don't have your phone, you feel like you're almost like, without it, like something is like missing, like a part of you is missing. So they did try to use like smart glasses, and some people have that. But I think it's going to be really interesting when it becomes like embedded in us, like in our eyeballs or in our hands. And that kind of freaks people out. Like, people always say, no. But so I would say that's kind of the weirdest one I could think of, other than the pill cam where you have to swallow a camera. But there's definitely, there's everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. So think of something, there's probably going to be a sensor in it.
I wonder to what degree there's a recreational pill cam industry. Like, people are like, I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I wonder what my spleen looks like, or wonder what my large intestine looks like.
I don't know about you, but I have no idea what my spleen or large intestine.
Yeah, neither do I. Neither do I. But do we need to know? Maybe. But but again, if it's technology is cheap enough,
yeah, exactly.
I'd give it a go. I would check it out.
Why not, right? Discern what the bronchial accumulate.
Yeah, see what's going on in there.
Yeah, so next question. Do you believe in too smart? Do you think that's a thing in Internet of Things, or do you think too smart isn't exactly a concept?
No, yeah.
If you think so, where would you draw the line?
I got lots of good questions. It's hard kind of putting my foot down on what the line is. I do think it is uncomfortable having technology know so much about you. Like, I do understand when people share like their health data, or for example, when people share their they do the 23andMe and they send your genome off. Like, it is an uncomfortable thing having so much of your it's just from a privacy perspective, like having everything about you on the internet can be really scary. How much is too much, and how do I see it going in the future? I think honestly, with AI becoming more and more like relevant and integrated in all our lives, what I've seen at like conferences that I went to is that the way they see AI in the future and Internet of Things is like AI is embedded in Internet of Things, so they kind of like the Internet of Thing is almost like the the technology, like the house, and AI is like in the house, essentially. That's running the show. So I do think that back to what I was saying about the conference. At the conferences, people are seeing AI as kind of like everyone will have their own little friend. Their little friend AI that will be essentially when all of our houses are smart. You'll go to the fridge and your AI will be on the fridge saying, "What do you want to eat?" And then you'll go to your bedroom or you go to the bathroom to brush your teeth, and your AI will essentially follow you around all the time. And they call it like a personal assistant. And they also said that the people I talked to at these conferences, at these computer science conferences, that they actually want to make it like age with you. So as you turn, as you go through your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, that it will you'll become so dependent on it. It'll be like your friend. However, we already see with chatbots and all of these things, this is kind of dark, but in the news yesterday, someone decided to take their own life because of a chatbot. They fell in love with this chatbot, and that looked like the girl from the Game of Thrones, Darius, the girl with blonde hair, Emily Clark. Sorry for your fans. But basically, that person decided to take their own life because he fell in love with AI. So it's really, where do I draw the line? I just think that we have to be really careful with this technology, because if there's going to be a time that they live among us, or they live in society beside us, what does that look like when it gets smarter than us? And is it going to be good, or is it going to be the end of humanity?
Yeah, augmenting reality is cool, but if you don't have one foot to the ground, you're gonna fall.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary thing. There's a good video that is that talks about just the fact that in the future, is AI the end of humanity? What happens when it's too smart? What happens? Yes, it's nice to have a personal assistant who couldn't use, I would love to have something fold my laundry and put it away for me. That would be great, saving time. But what happens when it starts calling the shots? What does that look like for humans? So I do think there is a line. Hopefully humanity is okay, though.
I'm optimistic in the human spirit.
Yeah,
that's also my nature, is to be optimistic.
For sure. Me too.
Looking into the future, what's your most out there prediction? Something that you would bet against, but you could also see possibly happening. Like, for example, the Washington Capitals winning a Stanley Cup any point in time in the next 5 years. I'd bet against it, but I hope for it. So what would your out there prediction be?
I think that all our devices are going to become like a lot more connected. I think a lot of standardization needs to happen. Because right now we're at the point where we've got Google and Apple and IBM, and everyone is kind of doing Microsoft. Everyone is, and Amazon. They're all kind of doing their own different thing. Um, I There's always the joke that Amazon is just gonna take over the world, that like the Amazon drone drops off your Amazon package and then you clock into the Amazon work. But I really think like there will be like a level of standardization that you'll be able to like, and we can see this already. Like you can walk into your house, your watch can be connected to your coffee maker. It knows exactly when you wake up. These things already exist. It knows where you are in your day. You go to your garage door opens because it's there. I do think we're going to be living in houses that are like just completely surrounded by like little sensors. So I do think our lives will be a lot easier because of that. Like the fact that we probably will have, you know, maybe like smart food in the future. Like the fact that, I'm not sure the Tesla bot, if you haven't looked into that, it's pretty crazy already. I'm not sure if we'll all have Tesla bots, but I do think that we will have houses like surrounded by sensors that we will just be able to walk by and everything will be like our outfits will be picked out for us, our food will be automatically ordered to our house. But the big question is like when all of those little things are taken care of, when the grass is being cut automatically, it's like, what do we do? Well, how is that going to change jobs, right? So it'll be interesting to see. So I would say, big prediction, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, everything is going to be smart, probably. Hopefully we're smart enough as well, though.
Yeah, hopefully we're smart enough to navigate that sort of society. I want to thank you profusely for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with the audience before?
Yeah, I would say that even if you find great, thank you. You've been wonderful too. You're one of my favorites. You're my favorite too, viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you as well. But Adnan is as well, obviously. But I would say that like even if you've never pictured yourself like looking into like all of this tech and computer science, if you're interested in learning more, like in the future there's going to be tons of jobs in this area. So don't be afraid to like even look into it like on your own and figure out like learn more about it on your own because it could be your job one day.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Take care.